So why do you get migraines? Okay. As I said, I already mentioned, this is the channel for the Migraine Whisperer, hands-on solution to debilitating health problems. So although we're talking about migraines primarily, I'm going to go into different issues because as far down as the coccyx, which is the tailbone, the lower spine, these things can actually directly influence people with migraines. And by the end of this, I'm going to give you, I've been working on a new analogy to explain why migraines can happen. I'm super excited to be able to share it with you. I think you'll find it very powerful and it'll help you with decision making in the future. Okay, so stay right to the end. I'm going to cover that towards the end. Yeah, as I say, if there are any items you'd like me to discuss, look into migraine auras, triggers, the effects of food on migraines. I do tend to cover that as I go through. I am very much what's called a first principle chiropractor. What that means is I refer back to the innate healing capacity of the body, okay? And by the end of this stream, you'll understand a little bit more about what I mean by that and why it can be super, super powerful. Okay. And today, on today's show, why do you get migraines? I'm going to give you 2 bonus strategies right at the end that you can apply now. We're going to talk about what is a migraine headache. Now, I've covered this in show number 1. I'm going to, actually, it's different material today. So if you've seen show number 1, just stick with me. If you go down into the description, every show that I produce, there will be a link to the playlist. Every show is going into a playlist, and there's a link to that playlist. On top of that, I've already produced a migraine playlist. So you can go to right now. There are 10 different videos which give you hands-on things that you can do actually right now. So don't go right now. Wait until the end of the stream. Come back at the end. Okay. Welcome, welcome if you just joined us. Nice to have you. I'm just going through what we're going to discuss today. Now, this is the analogy I'm super excited about. It's the migraine basketball court. It actually came to me last night, but it's, to be honest, it's been developing over the last 2 or 3 years. And I'm going to discuss that with you. I'm going to show that to you. Hopefully it'll make it a little clear as to where the different stresses in your life can come to play and why they can be much more powerful in certain areas at certain times. Okay. And then what 2 strategies you can apply now to get relief. And should you even apply these strategies? Because sometimes there are strategies put together in the name of health, which don't necessarily aren't necessary to your best interests, okay? And maybe they're misinformed. And you know, the best case, a lot of them are misinformed. In other cases, they have actually vested interests greater than your vested interests, okay? So, but if you understand these strategies, then this is going to help you with that decision-making process, okay? And as I said before, if you're enjoying the material, just go down there and hit that like, and it's going to help other migraine sufferers across the area, Canada, across the world, get this information and actually share it. That's if you, I was pressed for time because of the technical issues I had. I didn't have a chance to share it on. I usually share this stuff on Twitter, X, on Facebook, you know, Instagram, that sort of stuff. So if you guys are watching now, if you can just share it, because I'm sure you've got family, sisters, daughters, brothers, nephews that have been suffering with migraines for some time and they've not heard this stuff before. Okay. Now, what is a migraine headache? I'm going to give you a working definition. I say working. This is actually a definition. I know where it's from. It's from the National Center for Health. It's the US body. This is the direct definition. If you look up what is a migraine, this is about number 4 or 5 in the list. Of all of them, the definitions, as a working definition, I like this one the most. And I'll explain in a second. I'll get myself out of the way. Boop. There we go. Migraine is a type of headache characterized by recurrent attacks of moderate to severe throbbing and pulsating pain on one side of the head. The pain is caused by the activation of nerve fibers within the wall of brain blood vessels traveling inside the meninges. Right, guys. Now, the meninges are very tough coverings around the brain. There are actually 3 levels of them. And as they get tougher, as they go through the different levels, okay? Now, if the meninges are out, I'm just going to jump back in again. Now, I love this definition because it's actually talking about the brain. Most definitions, and talking about the insides of the brain, most definitions talk about like pain on one side of the head. Now, I call it a working definition because I know there are people watching here, their migraines will be a completely different characteristic, okay? And that's because we're all different. Every single human being on the planet is different. the imbalances in the nerve system, the imbalances in the cerebral spinal fluid channels, the imbalances in the shape of the brain, where the ventricles are, where the reservoirs of fluid are being held, are all completely different. So the level of stress that gives you issues, sets off your klaxon, and we're going to talk about that a bit later, is going to be different for different people. Okay. But I like the definition because it talks about the meninges. Let me get out of the way again. It talks about the meninges, and that's these coverings. Now, this is limited. It's a limited definition because people experience migraines in many different ways. There are many different theories of what actually cause migraines. Some people, if they have a vestibular migraine, which comes from within the inner ear, they have no pain at all. So that's for sure a type of migraine that happens, no pain at all, but they have huge dizziness. And there's other people that get abdominal migraines where they have like excruciating pain in the stomach. There's one theory is that colicky babies are actually babies that are suffering with migraine, whichever type that may be, which is why you can feed them, you can clothe them correctly, you can be hugging them, they can be slept and rested, but they're screaming relentlessly. And you parents out there that have seen that, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, and let us forge on. Okay, now welcome everyone that's just joined. Now, if you just want to either come back and double speed up to where we are, or just catch the replay, that would be awesome. And if you want to throw a couple of comments, that'd be great to hear from you. It's always nice to hear from any of you guys out there. And if you've got any questions, just throw it in the chat, and I will do my very best to answer it as we go along. And do not be shy. It gives what happens when you post a question or where you interact. The YouTube algorithm then sends this information on migraines to other migraine sufferers. So if you're liking it, do make a comment, especially at the end of the stream and the replay. And I do circle back and answer those the best I can. Okay, cool. So that's the definition. Now, this is the thing that makes a migraine different from a headache. And I've personally not been a migraine sufferer. I'm blessed, but my mother had 30 years of migraines. If you guys join me in 2 weeks' time, I think she's coming on then. We've also got a guest next week. I was hoping to have a guest this week, but I must admit I got tied up with the technical side of thing. So, but we'll be getting a guest coming in more and more. I want migraine sufferers to come tell you their stories, tell you what they tried. So you yourself are going to have things that you can share either with your friends and family that are migraine sufferers, or maybe yourself are. So vomiting, that's the thing that's very common with migraines. Light sensitivity, you'll have heard, or maybe you haven't, but the people, they lock themselves in a dark room so they can recover from migraines. Activity sensitivity, I didn't realize this, but when a person has a migraine, different to a headache, the more activity you get, the more intense the migraine becomes, okay? And it can last from hours to days, which is why I was saying, just a fixed definition of a migraine is going to be very limited. Some people experience this for only 40 minutes, but it can be excruciating and knock them out for 2 or 3 hours. And if that happens twice a day, that's the whole day gone. And some people have a whole 2 or 3 days of migraine attacks, and then they don't have anything again for 2 or 3 months. And I get that all the time in the practice, okay? And we talked about abdominal and vestibular migraines as being something over and above what people think as that classic migraine, all right? And actually at the bottom of this, I talk about aura as well. Okay, so aura is something else. So, and what that is, for those of you that haven't heard about it before, is that you start to sense about 24 hours before the migraine, you start to sense light changes, a little bit like heat waves, or there can be bright sparks or lightning. And like I say, it comes in all sorts of different formats for different people. Okay, right. So what is a migraine headache? We've covered that. Now, when are triggers not triggers? Now, if you do any research about migraines, it always talks about triggers, okay? And I want to broach this subject because it's going to come and it's going to tie in at the end with the 2 strategies, okay? Now, I was in the military for a good 15 years. I was with the commandos in Iraq and Afghanistan, okay? So I've heard about triggers. I know what they should do. Now, the idea is when you have a trigger, you pull the trigger and the hammer comes back and goes forward. And it's always going to do that every time you pull the trigger, the hammer comes back, goes forward, bump, bump, bump. But that is not what happens with migraines. So for example, someone may have a sensitivity to peppers or some sort of food, like it might be beans, because beans have got the tyrosine in, which is the chemical that preserves them and actually makes them repugnant to animals. But we boil them and we fire through that. But some people are sensitive to that. But they don't necessarily get a migraine after one. And let's face it, they may have eaten beans for 30 years and it's only when like 30, 32, 33, they start getting issues. And I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to explain that exactly. So just wait here to the end. Or not just wait here, just enjoy yourself, hang in, and I'll explain that at the end. So when we're talking about triggers, we're not actually talking about triggers, okay? So for example, the weather, if the weather was a trigger for migraines, when it happened, every time it happened, everybody would get migraines, okay? But that's not what happens. What happens is some people get migraines at certain levels of pressure and other people don't. So it's variable. So a trigger is not really a trigger. And the reason I have a difficulty with it is it starts to make these things, carve them out in stone. So people start thinking now, well, every single time this is there, it's going to happen. Well, it isn't, not every time. And the reason that's often done is there could be a sector that are trying to convince you that a trigger is a trigger because they get paid in whatever form to ameliorate that trigger. Okay, so you get rid of one, but something, I'm telling you now, something else will come along. And this is the reason why, the next slide. Okay, so it's when it's a stressor. Sorry, way too much in front of that there. So a trigger is not a trigger when it becomes a stressor. So a stressor is something that builds up over time and then finally sets something off. So it doesn't mean to say that if you're in the presence of, a thunderstorm approaching, it's going to happen. But again, when I show you the analogy of the basketball court, it'll become a lot more obvious. Now, stresses that we talk about, physical stresses, so that could be whiplash. A lot of people have migraines, headaches happening after whiplash, okay? I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And for you guys that watched any of my shows before, I talk about this structure. This is the back of the skull. And then these are the first two bones. The first one is atlas. It looks like this. And I'm going to show you a little bit more about atlas and the elephant a bit later, okay? And then the second bone is actually a pivot point. I don't know if you can see that, the pivot there. And actually, you can't see anything because I'm trying to show you it and I'm not even on screen. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Death by view graph. Okay, so this is what we're talking about here. So the back of the skull, the first bone, which is called atlas. Atlas is a ring and it holds up the skull. So it looks like that when it's on its own and the skull sits in it. And then the second bone, okay, is a pivot bone and they pivot around there, okay? Now I'm an expert at correcting this complex, this upper cervical complex. And I'm going to explain why I find it so important, all right? But I'm going to give you a lot of stuff that you can use as well. Okay, I'm going to get out of the way again. Now I've shown you that. So you have physical stresses from whiplash. It could be, playing sports, okay? Basketball, football, soccer, rugby, all of that sort of stuff. And then just the physical stress of gravity. You see people, older folk walking down the street, and even today, younger folk that have been on their iPhones and their iPads since they were young, the head comes forward. And as the head comes forward, you now have gravity behind the back of the head. So now there's a lot of gravity. The force of gravity is adversely operating on this spine, and on this upper spine is going to prematurely age, okay? So that's how it works there. Right, okay. Okay, guys, so physical we talked about, emotional, trouble with the family, trouble at work, trouble with relationships, and then chemical. So this is a big one. It could be things like additives in the food. It could be tobacco, alcohol. And in modern living, the biggest chemical source is pharmaceuticals. Okay, so these stresses contrive to put all sorts of pressure on the nerve system. Okay, so whilst I've had fantastic results with people with migraines in my office, The fact is, chiropractic care is not a cure for migraines, okay? In fact, chiropractic care is not a cure for anything. What chiropractic does, it removes imbalance which happens in the nerve system due to these stresses, okay? So I don't practice treating symptoms and disease. I practice removing nerve system imbalance, and you'll see a little bit later it has profound results with people. Okay, right, moving on. So this is how it all ties together. The stress hits the nerve system puts pressure on the muscles are now out of balance, so the spine is out of balance, the structure is out of balance. Now, if the structure changes over months, years, and tens of years, there are physical changes because of something called Wolff's Law. What Wolff's Law says is if you take some bones and you put pressure on the bones, those bones get harder. The only thing is, if it's adverse pressure and it's asymmetric, now you're going to get a change in a hardening on one side compared to the other. And this is what I call marshmallowing. If you guys can see it, they look like you're taking a marshmallow and you squished it down instead of these nice big chunky, these nice big chunky rectangular shaped spinal bones. Okay, right now, what this leads to over a period of time leads to this downward spiral of function. Now, as well as the function going downhill, and as well as the nerves powering the muscle, so I can't make that muscle there unless nerves fire in my neck. As well as those nerves firing the muscles, those nerves also fire the organ system, okay? It fires the entire organ system. So the nerves come out of the spine, and you can see around my neck area here, that's what I call C8 and T1, which is the pink-blue section here. And C8 goes to the diaphragm. So there's a nerve that comes out of the neck that powers the diaphragm that helps us to breathe. So you could have a problem in the neck, which could give you breathing issues. At T12, the bottom of the middle spine, the bottom of the blue spine, there you can see it goes to the small intestines, the lower and upper back. So conceivably, if there was pressure on those nerves there, it would alter how those organs were working. And so there's a whole link between the organ system and the nerve system. Okay. Now, a lot of this is super, super hard. In fact, impossible to prove by measuring it, because it's really hard to cut into someone, put a measure onto something like a nerve system that's feeding the small intestines without damaging them far beyond the level of benefit that you get from that data. So a lot of this stuff is really philosophical. Okay, so chiropractic was always a philosophy, a science, and an art. Okay, all three of the things. It was like a three-legged stool. If you take away the science, it falls over. If you take away the art, which is the adjusting, it falls over. If you take away the philosophy, which is the ability to see into the future, to project what may or may not happen, then the chair falls over, the three-legged stool falls over. Okay, cool. So let's move on now. So that's when triggers are not triggers. Now let's talk about the migraine basketball court. Okay, so this is something that I dreamt up yesterday. Okay, and this is the migraine basketball court. I'm sorry about the titles at the top there. I've just I've used a new computer and it won't let me update PowerPoint, so it's changed all the fonts back. But anyway, there we go. So we'll do better next time. Okay. Right, guys. Now, first of all, I want to give a shout out to the chat there. So welcome everyone that's in the chat. Welcome for viewing. If you've got any comments, throw them out there. Now, this is not, repeat, not health advice. Okay, I actually have the disclaimer down in the description. Okay, I'm going to get it at the front. I was meant to be in the front of this one. But there's a big, long disclaimer. It will take you about 5 minutes to read, but I'm going to give you the health disclaimer in 10 seconds. Okay, no, I'm not. There is a one, but I'll give it to you at the end if we can dig that out. So that's Homer Simpson. So at the beginning it says, not health advice, purely edutainment. okay, and then his head explodes. So this is purely edutainment, okay, just for education and entertainment. Whilst I am a health provider, I'm not your health provider because we have not had any exams. So I can't obviously use all of this information at your own risk. Okay, that said, I'm very good at what I do. So do seek the advice of a qualified chiropractor before doing any of this stuff that I've shown you in any of these videos. Okay, moving on. Okay, so this is the basketball court analogy for migraines. So the basketball court is your body, okay? It is your body temple. And this one is in the desert because the body temple lives in a busy and fairly rough place, okay? Now, throughout life, I'm just going to have to flash up the next one. Yeah, throughout life, you do things. You do activities. Now, that is the players on the court, okay? So the players on the court are the activities that you do in your life or that you want to do in your life. Climbing mountains, going traveling, running along the beach, running a marathon, or just maybe even just putting your socks on without getting excruciating migraine pain, okay? Or being able to go outside without the bright light taking you out completely and you vomiting. Okay, so these are the activities that you do, and I'm all for helping you and your family do what you love doing for longer. I'm tired of premature spinal aging leading to things like migraines, neck pain, back pain, all that sort of stuff. Okay, I'm an enemy to that. So this is how it works. Now, because your body lives in a stressful place and it has garbage dumped in it, has dust blown on it, has rubbish blown on it, when that level of garbage gets up to 50%, there's an incredible klaxon that goes off. Okay, and that is a sign to you that there is an issue, that things they're not critical, but they're moving towards critical. Okay, so you got 50% of your basketball court is covered in detritus. Now, what you do, or what happens, not what you do, but what happens in life is that you have a sprayer that you use to spray the basketball court down. It keeps it nice and clean, okay? And by keeping it nice and clean, it means that your guys can come out and you can do your activity. Now, it's not you with the sprayer. This is what we call innate intelligence. That's an intelligence that lives deep within you. And innate intelligence repairs and heals all the cells. It adapts the body, and it's constantly having you in a state of replacement and healing. Okay. Now, okay, yeah, I've gone a little ahead of myself. So when you clean up your basketball court, it gets rid of all the garbage, get you back to this, and then you can go back to the activities that you love doing. Now, here's the thing. Over time, where the wind and the detritus and the rubbish is blowing off the desert and you're cleaning it up, perhaps you've built big high walls around the basketball court. Okay, and these high walls are health activities. Okay, so it might be eating well, running well, looking after your health activities. But guess what? Sometimes those stresses are so great that it gets a dustbin over the wall onto the basketball court, okay? And your innate intelligence comes out and it cleans it down again. But after a period of time, you start to get rocks and detritus piled upon the hose pipe. It starts off as a few pebbles. So this may be emotional stuff, probably trouble with the kids, just winding on your nerves a little bit. You don't even think about it. You never go and meditate. You never go to a therapist. And then a little bit later, you have a few trips and falls. But, you don't see your massage therapist. You don't go do your walking. You start doing less and less of your activity. And little by little, the stones start to pile up on your hose pipe. So now you're having a little more trouble cleaning off the basketball court, but not too much. We're not going to worry about it too much because we can deal with that. But then what's happened is the stone pile gets bigger and bigger, and you have some imbalance in your nervous system and in your structure, which you haven't got rid of. And you don't realize that's impeding on your nerves. And what the nerve system is the information superhighway for the innate intelligence. Okay. So now that innate intelligence, your body's inborn intelligence, when it brings out the sprayer to clean things up, guess what? It doesn't have as much va-va-voom as it did, when you were 18, when you were 12, when your body was producing 30 million cells every single second as a baby. The va-va-voom is reduced because of the stuff that we've done, because of these stresses that have not been dealt with. Okay. And then one day an elephant comes along. And let me tell you what the elephant is, because I deal with this elephant all the time. They really should call me the Elephant Whisperer. But remember, I showed you Atlas. Atlas, at the top of the spine, when that gets out of balance, it can start to interfere with signals going all the way down into the spine. Philosophically, okay, as I said to you before, it's hard to put a probe in here and then measure a probe from the brain. But philosophically, this is what happens. And I'll tell you where this philosophy has come from. Tomorrow is the 129th birthday of chiropractic, okay? So 129 years of chiropractors adjusting the neck. Many of them, like me, if they're first principled, specifically adjusting the upper spine, Atlas, taking pressure off the nerves, allowing the body to express. So that is the elephant in the room, the elephant standing on your hose pipe. And when that elephant is on the hose pipe, innate's trying to do its job, but that debris is building up and up and up. Now, this debris is those stresses or those what people call triggers. As I say, I don't think it's a trigger. It's been building up for a long time. But obviously, once you've got a bit of this on the basketball course, perhaps more of it sets off the klaxon. Okay, so people do get sensitized to it. But usually at the beginning of life, when they're exposed to those stressors, then it doesn't give you the issue. But now we got the elephant sat on the hose pipe. So things are starting to run amok in our basketball court, okay? And then along comes the chiropractor, okay? And he adjusts the whole of the spine. And by adjusting the whole of the spine, we're starting to deal with unresolved stresses. And we're not getting rid of this stuff on the basketball court, okay? What we're doing is we're encouraging the elephant to move, okay? And then once the elephant's gone and it's just a large pile of pebbles, we're encouraging the large pile of pebbles to reduce. And we're taking those stones off one at a time, one after time, one after time. And with time, that spray head there starts to get stronger and stronger. In other words, your innate intelligence starts to get stronger and stronger. And it enables the body to try to clean up the basketball court. But here's the thing. If it has been like a scrapyard for 20 years, how effective is innate intelligence going to be? Now, it's going to be great at clearing a lot of things, but there may be one or two things that aren't going to be moved. Maybe that compressed spine, that lower back L5S1 that was compressed 40 years ago when you had that car accident at the age of 15 or 14, and the car rolled 5 times, and you came out and you couldn't walk for 4 months, then maybe that is garbage, which is going to stay in the basketball court, and we're going to have to play around it. But what the important thing is to get back to play, okay, to get back to the game, to get your people back in, so you are doing your activities again, okay? And if you guys have just joined us on the stream and you've got the end of that analogy, you're going to have to check out the replay or rewind a little bit to get the full analogy, and I'm sure you'll see it makes a lot more sense then. Okay, so what 2 strategies can you apply now to get relief? And should you? So I'm going to talk about 2 strategies, which I've alluded to already. So the first strategy is the strategy of treating symptoms and disease. Okay, so in other words, someone comes, they have a symptom or a disease. Now remember, just so you remember, this is purely for edutainment, okay? Education and entertainment, all right? This is not health advice, okay? I am a chiropractor, but I may not be your chiropractor. But what we're talking about here is 2 different strategies. One is a diagnosis and treatment of symptoms and disease, which by definition is the practice of medicine. So if you diagnose and treat a symptom, whether you're using herbs, whether you're using chakra points, whether you're using crystals, then you are practicing medicine. Now, if I am using my hands to manipulate you, and by the way, I don't manipulate anybody, if I use my hands to manipulate you, then I am to make a symptom go away. So even if I'm adjusting you specifically to make a particular symptom go away, then I'm practicing manipulative medicine. Okay, I'm not actually practicing chiropractic. First principle chiropractic was we're going to remove interference from the nerve system, allow the nerve system to express itself better, which may help the symptom you've come in with, and it may actually not. For example, if you've come in with hearing issues and we adjust you and we reconnect the nerve system to the ears, but you leave and you still can't hear, it may be that you've actually got bones missing in your ear. And I can adjust you, I can reconnect the communication lines, I can adjust to improve the communication function, but your hearing is never going to come back because it's actually physically missing. The same way as if you've got a leg cut off, I can adjust you, but obviously your leg's not going to grow back because the body's not designed to do that. That is not a chiropractic problem. However, if you had hearing issues or a missing leg, I would highly recommend keeping yourself adjusted so that your basically so your basketball court is kept cleaner and cleaner so that you have more function in your body. Okay, right. So the first strategy is a practice of medicine. So what does that mean with migraines? So painkillers, of course, most people who suffer migraines have done plenty of that. Okay. There is ablation, which is cutting of nerves. We can either do that with lasers. You can use it with Botox, so that's chemically cutting nerves. You can drink a bottle of whiskey. That's going to make the pain go away for sure. That is the practice of medicine. So if you drink that and the pain goes away, then you've correctly practiced medicine. But that's kind of alcoholic medicine. So and then the other strategy is to try and resolve the issue, which is to get to the root cause. In my experience in 20 years in the chiropractic office with lots and lots and lots of migraine sufferers, I find that a lot of times, a high percentage of the time, and I must admit I haven't put the data together for that, but I'm going to go through the practice, put together all the data, but I know a large percentage of people have improved. And indeed, there is a study that was produced about 5 years ago. I will bring it up for another show. And over 100 people with headaches have been looked after over a 5-year period, and a very large percentage of those increased. Again, I'll get those figures for you. For those of you guys out there that like your figures, I will get that, and actually I'll get some more as well. And I did start an ad hoc migraine study here in the office, but I didn't get that finished yet. But I do want to do some work and perhaps do some work with a local university so we can get this all quantified a lot better. Right, okay, so remove an imbalance, and as I showed you, let's see if we can get this up. Boop. Remove an imbalance, specifically C1. I don't know if you can see right at the top C1. There's a blood supply to the head and the pituitary gland. That's what that affects. So by adjusting this one bone, A, you improve motion, B, you improve nerve system supply. And although this is not proven yet, imbalance up there, I'm certain, interferes with CSF flow. And the reason I say that is I've had a couple of patients that every time I adjust them specifically up here, not every time, sorry, like when they came in with excruciating head pain, I adjusted them and they said it felt like their toilet was flushing. So that was very interesting. So I'm certain that there's some sort of link with CSF flow, even if it's just a slight restriction, which sounds very dramatic when the restriction is released. Okay, right, everyone. So next week, 5 p.m. We're gonna be here at 5 p.m. next week. Right. First things first. If you guys would like to come along, you're in the Ottawa area, you want to come along for a nice cup of tea, go down below into the description. And in this description, there's a ton of stuff. And go down below in the description. We've got a bunch of stuff for you. We've got some playlists for those of you that are away from us and have trouble getting back to getting in here. If you're local, then come on in and I'll give you a free 15-minute consultation and a nice cup of tea. So I do like my tea. And share ding the bell to all so you get notifications when I come out again. From this channel, I do a lot of ad hoc stuff, not necessarily a set timetable. So if you've got that set up, you're going to see that when it comes out. And go now to the channel, and you can actually click on the next show, which is happening next Friday, next Tuesday at 5 p.m. And we've got Migraine Aura coming up soon as well. We're going to talk about Migraine Auras, what it means, where it comes from, what you can do to try and relieve it. That is actually that's next week. So next week we've got migraine. Oh no, we haven't. So that's the weekend after. That's when my mum will be here, 1st of October, if she can make it, hopefully. And then next week we've got migraine and neck pain. Sorry, migraines, neck and back pain. What is the link? That's going to be a corker. Okay, I'll be talking about the brain fluid. We're going to talk about the natural pump inside your body and how we can optimize that. Okay, everyone, I trust that you've enjoyed that. And in fact, let me show you just before you go. So I think I could do this, although I'm a little bit of a biff when it comes to, there we go. Boop. Right, there you go, guys. So there I am. That's my channel at Dr. Craig Hindson. Now, this show is the migraine show. So it's the Migraine Whisperer show. It is live. I do a lot of videos which are not live. Okay, so if you're looking at the videos, there's not much going on. It's because every week I've got one going on live. So the next one is migraines, neck pain, and back pain. What's the link? Migraine Whisperer show number 4, and then after that we're going to be doing what is a migraine headache aura and can it be relieved? That's show number 5. Okay, and I'll have my mom there. Okay, everyone, have fun. Have a great week. I trust this has been of some interest and you've learned something. If you have, spank the like and ding the subscribe and all that good stuff. All right, take care. Enjoy your night. Dr. Craig out.